Welcome into this evening edition of Bengals Breakdown. I am your host, Stone Shields. Appreciate you hanging out with us here this evening. On today's show, going to be spending a lot of time talking about Tee Higgins in particular. A report came out a little bit earlier today from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, and he kind of shared some insight in regards to Tee Higgins' future with the Cincinnati Bengals beyond the 2024 season. So on today's show, I'm going to provide my thoughts, opinions on, this kind of whole Tee Higgins saga, right? All the drama that kind of took place this offseason and where it has led us here to where we are in November. We're going to give you some reasons as well that are for Tee Higgins staying in Cincinnati beyond 2024 and some reasons against Tee Higgins staying in Cincinnati for 2025. So that's going to be the focus of our show today here on Bengals Breakdown. But before we get into that, make sure you guys give me a follow over on Twitter at StoneShields_. Really appreciate you guys helping me get to that 500 mark. We're sitting there at around 518 or so right now. So 80 or so followers to get to that 600 mark here. And we're almost at the halfway point of the month of November, and that is our goal to get to 600 by the end of the month. So give me a follow on Twitter at StoneShields_. All of our Bengals Breakdown content will be posted to my Twitter page, as well as my own thoughts and opinions. Of course, all the injury updates from the beat writers as well. So give me a follow at StoneShields_ on Twitter. Let's jump right into the quote here from Jeremy Fowler, and then we'll kind of unpack things as we progress from there. But Fowler wrote, "There's little to no chance Higgins is in Cincinnati beyond 2024. People I've talked to feel pretty strongly about that, barring a major surprise. A second franchise tag would cost the Bengals around $26.2 million on a one-year rental. Higgins wanted out of Cincinnati last offseason, and the Bengals will likely allocate resources for a chase contract. Higgins will have a strong market because of the number of receiver-needy teams and Higgins' wide receiver one traits." Into my opinions on this in a second. That is pretty significant news, obviously, there from ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. But before we get into my thoughts, I want you guys to get interactive with our show here at Bengals Breakdown with the pin comment of today's video. Do you want Higgins to stay in Cincinnati beyond the 2024 season? Type Y for yes, N for no. It is the pin comment of today's video. So if that ad comes here on YouTube, that's totally fine. Take advantage of it. Get down in the comment section and let us know what you think. All right, to be completely honest with you guys, I have gone back and forth on this situation for quite some time. As the Bengals went into this 2024 season, I had kind of accepted that Tee Higgins, this was going to be it as far as his last season in Cincinnati. I had kind of come to terms with that, right? But then, he misses the first couple of games, of course, with the hamstring injury, and then he started playing really well through that stretch. Of course, he's missed the past 3 games with the quad. We'll get into his injury status a little bit later in today's show. But like I said, he started playing really well. And, you were out there watching him with Jamar Chase kind of fantasizing about, man, what could this be like for several years down the road to have both of these guys out there with Joe Burrow? And I was kind of the mindset, while he was kind of going through that stretch before the quad, hey, it would be pretty cool, to pay Tee Higgins, have him come back and just pay 3 guys a ton of money on offense. But now he's hurt again, right? Of course, he has missed the past 3 games with that quad injury, which, really has derailed kind of the season that was coming his way. Again, has missed 5 games total so far this season. And, by the way, he did practice today in a limited capacity, so there's optimism he's going to be ready to go on Sunday night. But, Higgins, when he is out there on the football field, he certainly elevates the Bengals offense and their wide receiving core in particular. And the things he can do, just kind of opening up some things for some of those other receivers in the wide receiver room. And just, defenses really have to allocate a lot of time and energy towards Tee Higgins because of all the things that he is capable of doing when it comes to stretching the football field from a vertical standpoint, right? He has the ability to separate and get open. The combination of speed and size is really kind of a sight to behold with Tee Higgins, and it's what kind of separates him as a really, really good football player on this team for Cincinnati. And then, of course, as I mentioned, the injuries, missing some games, that kind of is a big red flag, and we'll kind of fully dive into his injury history a little bit later on in today's show. But coming up next, we're going to give some reasons for and against keeping Tee Higgins. That's coming up around the corner, so make sure you guys stick around for that. But before we do that, I want to give a shout-out to our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. PrizePicks is the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. This is what our buddy Harrison Graham here at Chat Sports threw together for the Thursday night slate coming up here on tomorrow night. He's got the less than on the Jaden Daniels passing yards and the more than on the A.J. Brown receiving yards. So I'm riding with my guy Harrison, and I'm going to use that PrizePicks slate for Thursday night football coming up tomorrow night. They also invented the flex play, by the way, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money, and even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today, use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. It's PrizePicks. Run your game. All right, now let's get into some reasons for keeping Tee Higgins. As I mentioned at the top of the show, he clearly makes your offense better. He is a dynamic playmaker, for your offense. And when he is out there, he really is a guy that looks like a wide receiver 1 in this football league. Despite the fact that, with the Cincinnati Bengals, that isn't necessarily his role on this team, with Jamar Chase, of course, being his counterpart. But just to have him out there with guys like, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. You've got some tight ends now that are kind of starting to come into their own and really be solid players for you. Chase Brown, a running back you really like. He's just another incredible player for your offense, and he really takes it to the next level. Another reason for keeping Tee Higgins, he makes Jamar Chase more dangerous. And look, Jamar Chase, obviously Tee Higgins was not out there on Thursday night against Baltimore, and Jamar Chase still absolutely went off. But when you have Higgins out there as well, you have to, if you're a defense, you have to allocate some resources towards Tee Higgins, and that leaves Jamar Chase in some more one-on-one situations, even though, not a ton of one-on-one situations. But when Chase is out there with Higgins and he has favorable matchups out there, my goodness, Jamar Chase really just takes the top off of defense. And when he's out there with Higgins, to me, he clearly looks like the best wide receiver in the National Football League, in my opinion. Now, there's been some people in the comments section saying, oh, pay Higgins and get rid of Jamar Chase. I like Tee Higgins, but that is the definition of blasphemy. But I do want to bring this question into you guys one more time. I understand the frustration with Jamar, how he handled the offseason, kind of the poutiness that we saw leading up, losing his emotions, control of his emotions against Kansas City week 2. But pick one of these guys to keep. Type J for Jamar Chase, T for Tee Higgins. Get down in the comment section. Let us know what you think. This, to me, is a very obvious answer, but you guys, for whatever reason, seem to have been a little split about this. So hop down in the comments, sound off for us. I want to know what you guys think. Last reason for keeping Tee Higgins. Look, this guy's a winner. All the success that this franchise has had in recent years, Tee Higgins has been out there doing a good job for this football team. You think about the Super Bowl run, of course. In that Super Bowl, Higgins had 100 yards receiving, right? And, the 2022 year, he was out there playing at a high level for this football team, getting back to that AFC championship game. Goes back to his time in college as well. The guy was a winner in college, national champion, helped upset Alabama when he was at Clemson. So this is a guy that's won everywhere he's been. And there's this notion that he's a little soft or a little fragile or whatever. Maybe that's true, maybe it's not. We'll kind of dive into that when we talk about our reasons against keeping Tee Higgins. But bottom line, you cannot dispute that this guy is a winning football player at his core. Absolutely no doubt about that. And really a guy that you really want on your football team from a competitive perspective. Let's hop into those reasons against keeping Tee Higgins. Look, your defense clearly needs significant help for this Cincinnati Bengals football team. My strategy is always pay the guys on offense and draft and develop well on defense and kind of go from there. Well, the Bengals aren't drafting and developing well on defense. They're going to have to do something in the offseason, whether it is a splashy move, bringing in somebody that's a really high-caliber player on that defense, or they're going to just have to absolutely hit on somebody in the draft, and they're going to need to be able to come in as a rookie and really make hay for this Cincinnati Bengals football team. We talk about finding another pass rusher alongside Trey Hendrickson. You need somebody in that secondary to step up as well and really be a lockdown guy for you that can eliminate a top receiver on the other side of the ball. We thought that was going to be CTB. Doesn't appear that that is the case. So the defense really needs a ton of help, and you're not going to be able to do that if you're paying Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, which is inevitable, and Tee Higgins. That's probably just a little bit too much to bite off as far as a salary cap perspective goes. Also, we've kind of dodged it up to this point, but the injuries are a valid concern for Tee Higgins, particularly these last couple of years really have been red flags. He has missed 12 games in his career due to injury. Now, some people out there act like he is hurt all the time. This is a guy that's played a lot of years in the league right now. He came in with Joe Burrow in 2020, and he's been around for a while. He played every game in 2020, only missed 2 games in 21, and played in all of them in 2022. So despite the fact that maybe, Joe Burrow alluded to the fact he didn't always pop up as quickly as maybe he should have, he was out there a lot of times in those first couple of 3 years for this Cincinnati Bengals football team. It really wasn't until this year in 2024 and last year in 2023 where you really saw these injuries sidelining him and making him inactive. So I think the injuries are definitely a concern for Tee Higgins, but I do think they also get maybe a little bit blown out of proportion to kind of the availability that he's truly had. Like I said, those first 3 years in the league, he pretty much was always out there for this football team. And last reason here, look, Tee Higgins might not want to be here. That could be a very real possibility. Now, it's hard for me as a non-football player to wrap my head around that, right? Because I'm like, well, you have an opportunity to play alongside Jamar Chase, which is going to give you all kinds of one-on-one chances, and you're playing with the top 2 quarterback in the National Football League in Joe Burrow, and you've been to a Super Bowl and another conference championship. Why wouldn't you want to stay? But he requested a trade in the offseason. Obviously, he wants his money, and he knows that, he's probably going to have to go elsewhere in order to get all the money that a team would possibly throw his way. So there's a very good chance that he is just done. And just talking to some people, around the league, it does seem like, Tee Higgins actually is frustrated with Cincinnati, and he didn't like the way they handled things this offseason, and he's going to be ready to move on as soon as this season ends, which is hard for me to believe considering all the talent that is there on offense, the fact that this is the team that drafted him, but I do, of course, understand him wanting to get that max paycheck that he thinks he deserves, and I think a lot of other teams would think he deserves it as well. We will be live on Sunday for Sunday Night Football, back-to-back primetime watch parties following up Thursday night last week. Hopefully we get a much better result this week here on Sunday night in Los Angeles against those Chargers. We will be live here at 7:30, so hit that sub button so you don't miss out on our watch party, youtube.com/BengalsTV.